much anticipated Australian tour of New Zealand. Chapel Hadley Trophy ODI 1. The Black Caps taking on Australia. Live from Eden Park, Auckland.
Welcome back to Eden Park. Trent Roxborogh and Jeremy Coney going to be starting off the Australian innings as the Aussie batsmen walk out to the centre of a very brightly lit Eden Park. It's been a sunny day in Auckland. The Black Caps are there and they've already done a bit of a team huddle, and Australia will get ready to chase New Zealand's 307 for 8. You wouldn't normally think of a score over 300, and this is only the seventh time at Eden Park in the 75 one-dayers that have been played at Eden Park that 300 has been surpassed. But you wouldn't normally think of 300 as being as sort of the score that you kind of stumble towards, but that was the case for New Zealand, who for much of their innings were scoring at over 7 and over, and 350 plus was on the cards. And then Australia brought it back. There was one period where there were only 8 runs scored off 5 overs. Santner was part of that. He was on 3 off 18, but managed to get things back at the end with some good hitting to take his score to 35 off 39 deliveries. Jeremy Coney is here. Jeremy, what do you make of the sort of the stumble in New Zealand's innings and then enough of a comeback to get past 300?
Well, I think that the pitch itself was, if anything, the rogue in some of that. It might have been the New Zealand batting or a bit of the Australian bowling, but I do feel that the conditions perhaps changed. And I think what we'll see here is a sort of almost a parallel kind of innings. I think the Australians will be keenly aware that while the ball is new and bouncing a bit more and a bit more pace from the surface, that will allow them to play more shots. So they want to try and make as much of that time that they can. And I felt from the time when Elliott came in, things started to get a little bit more awkward. He went for a lofted drive and couldn't get it over at mid-off, that kind of, and that was about the 25th or 26th over. When as the ball aged, and the wicket got a little slower, it became more difficult to score.
So we'll see whether that plays much of an impact in the second half of this game, as Trent Boult is going to be bowling the first over, and as it's Sean Marsh who is on strike. Boult runs in, bowls to the fellow left-handed Marsh, and is defended down at the pitch onto the onside. There is no run.
So it'll be interesting to watch whether that will be the way that Australia, in other words, going hard up front, which tends to be their method anyway, to be fair, doesn't Tim? I mean, you know, with Warner there, he likes to get on with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Warner, who's averaging 37, Marsh is 40, and Khawaja not in the team as Boult runs in, and this ball is on a good length, defended back down onto the onside, and again there's no run. A lot of talk about Khawaja not in the team, and it's probably less to do with Khawaja and more to do with the fact that Marsh hasn't done anything wrong yet. Marsh, who's averaging 40.
I think that's exactly right. He's got his 350s, I think, in the last few ODIs. He's there, he's doing the job. I think we'll stick with him first up, thanks.
Yeah.
It's one of those. Even though we know you're playing extremely well, you'll get a game.
At some point as Boult comes in, and again on a good length, possibly a little bit short of a length, and it's defended to the offside this time. And again, no run.
As far as Boult's concerned, it's quite good that the two left-handers are in, because he's just a little bit more dangerous, I think, going away with the two slips in there, positioned McCullum at 1 and Guptill at 2. You know, just taking the ball, if anything, it may not swing immediately. Once that lacquer comes off, it might sort of the third or fourth over.
Two slips in place to Boult as he runs in, and this ball to Marsh is defended to the offside, and they will get a run, the first run of the Australian innings. And thoughts from the New Zealand fielders to throw the stumps down, but in the end they decided there was no point. So 1 run on the board, and Australia won without loss. 2 deliveries left in the first over. Just 126 Ks from Boult there.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't. Well, no, give him a bit of time. He'll be hopefully working up a bit more than that. But he hasn't been himself totally, has he, over the summer? Hasn't been that 140 up around there where he has been in the past.
He got a couple of deliveries into the high 130, sort of 137 in the last game, but much slower, as a lot of people have said, than he was last season. So hopefully that'll come back as he bowls to David Warner. And this ball to Warner is wrapped on the pads. Loud appeal, but it looked just a little leg side-ish initially from high in the stands, and a big boo now from the crowd, or a slight boo with the excitement of that LBW appeal.
Didn't swing. Didn't swing. It needed to just come back a shade. It held its line, and it would have missed leg stump.
And that ball up to 133. So a little bit of rhythm now for Trent Boult. One delivery left in this over, and it's been a good first up over for New Zealand. David Warner, one of the most destructive batsmen in world cricket, as he takes guard against Boult, and this delivery is hit into the onside, and the Australians will get a quick single. And that ends the first over. So 2 runs from it, and a good start for Trent Boult, as Australia looked to chase down 308. Wasp is giving them a 28% chance. I always mention Wasp and then wonder why I did. I don't get very excited about it, Jeremy.
No,
but,
nor do I.
But it's there.
Something predictor, isn't it? Yeah. Interesting that McCullum's at first. I'm assuming that's because of his back. He doesn't normally feel at first slip, does
he? No, he
doesn't. He's
normally mid-off.
Yeah, well, Williamson was at mid-off for the last over, and here he is again at sort of mid-off area.
How difficult do you think it is for a team when you've had a captain who's been out, and you've got the heir apparent who then took over, and then the previous captain comes back?
Well, they seem to have managed it pretty well, but I would have thought that someone who is as I don't know, I don't like to use the word dominant, but the style is very different, I think, between the two. They're two very different people, and I would have thought that would be quite hard, maybe, for the bowlers. But he's handled himself very well. Personally, I'd rather he wasn't captain. I'd rather he just let the kid bat for a few more years and then. But there's not many succession, other options around.
As Henry bowls the second over for New Zealand, his first ball is short and fast, and it has been wided from both umpires. The square leg one and the umpire at the bowler's end both outstretched their arms, as is very much the trend at the moment. That the umpires are very, very strict on anything short. And so that's wider, but that up over 140. Just seeing Henry's stats, obviously new into his career, but just 23 matches, 43 wickets at an average of 22. We talk about how much batsmen dominate bowlers these days, but those are outstanding stats for Henry, who has an economical run-up. This delivery from him as he runs past the umpire. Short again in the air. It hit over point and safely enough, though it was a slight miss hit. The Australian batsmen are going to think about 3 here as the New Zealand fielders, 3 of them chase after the ball. And a good throw to Ronke over the stumps, but the Australians were able to get 3. And that takes their total to 5 without loss on those 3 runs for David Warner.
Gee, they ran that quickly, didn't they? Because we don't often see 3 at Eden Park. Certainly it was to one of the longer boundaries. The chase was good from Nichols and Sentner. They sort of fielded like the posse.
They did. Good team fielding as Henry runs in this delivery. Oh, a good ball which just beats Marsh outside the off stump. Possibly a little bit of movement. Just a little bit away from the left-hander. The 2 Aussie left-handers, and Marsh misses that one, and Henry getting good pace, 139 Ks.
Yeah, it's just that area outside off stump and uncertainty. Perhaps batsmen in the one-day game, Tim, wanting to just get bat on ball a little bit more.
Next delivery from Henry. This one is an awkward one for Marsh as he looks to tuck it into the onside, but it goes into the offside. There's no run, and that one just off the pad. So how much momentum do you think Australia would have got from how they came back during the New Zealand innings?
I think they would have felt pretty good about the way they were able to throttle New Zealand. It's a question of how much they feel the surface played in that.
Next delivery from Henry is short, and it's hit down, and that's probably going to make it all the way to the boundary. In fact, it will. And that's a nice back foot drive, not a full-on cut, as it's hit between the 2 fielders, the point fielder and the cover point. And that's a boundary. First one for Australia takes them to 10 without loss, with 2 deliveries left in the second over.
Just a little bit much width from Henry. The other option, of course, he can come around the wicket and sort of close the angle down a little bit more. Then, of course, you want to use your slips if you can.
As the next delivery from Henry has this edged and caught at second slip. Outstanding bowling from Henry as he was able just to angle the ball as if it was going to head down leg side, but the batsman got an outside edge and went through the second slip.
Guptill the man, safe, as we know, in the park wherever he is. Full of ball from Matt Henry, just drawing Marsh, and he lost his shape as a batsman. He lost his balance a little bit and squared up, and Henry's the man to take the first wicket. Just the start, of course, you want as a side when you're defending a total, that you pick up wickets in these first few overs and get the opposition, on the back footing.
Just squared him up a little, didn't it? And you talk about the safe hands of Guptill. He's taken some outstanding catches over the last few years. And Australia one down with just 10 runs on the board. Sean Marsh departs for 5. And all the talk about Khawaja, there was probably only one failure from Marsh before Khawaja's almost certainly going to come into the side. The Australian captain, and there's so many fine young batsmen on the scene at the moment, and Steve Smith is as good as they get. And Steve Smith in that bracket alongside Joe Root and Coley and Kane Williamson, who are just seemingly able to pass 50 virtually every time they bat at the moment.
Well, he's a fine player, Smith. You can't argue against that kind of record that he's fashioning at the moment. He's a mover and a groover, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of moving parts around the preparation for the stroke. So much so that he gets outside off stump almost. That the English decided they would bowl at about a 5th or 6th stump. And so they were virtually bowling quite straight at him in a way.
Well, I wonder at what point in time he decided that was going to be what he'd do, or whether it was just something that sort of evolved naturally, that if you do watch it precisely as you say, that he takes these steps outside off stump. And you feel as a bowler, there are all the stumps. I can bowl this guy out.
Well, he backs himself, of course, to get something on all that.
An average of 41. Steve Smith, first ball for Matt Henry. And it's driven through point. The diving fielder couldn't get across to it. And this could be a second 3 of the over. How rare is that on Eden Park? And the throw comes in now. And Smith is underway with a 3 to point. And so a few runs off that over, but also very important wickets. Australia 13 for 1 after 2, chasing 308 for the win.
Well, good over because it's been a successful one for Henry. The majority of balls just a little bit short early on in the over, but once he got the radar right and pitched it up a little bit more, it brought about the wicket of Marsh's. He was looking to close the face slightly and play it into the leg side, took an outside edge, and Guptill did the rest. And then, I think Smith, even though that drive, he's got 3 and he's away here, it was a outside edge, wasn't it, really? Wasn't a controlled stroke. So good start from Matt Henry.
And had it been controlled, it would have gone for 4. So, just held up and 3 runs. So Trent Boult, can he get into the wickets as well? We've got one slip in place, which is McCullum. He's standing wide of Ronke as Boult runs in. And this delivery is edged for 4. It was an inside edge. So a moral victory for Boult, though moral victories don't tend to count so much. And that's gone down for 4 runs. Jeremy Coney, you spotted a fielder who's in close on the onside. What's the thinking here?
Well, no, that's Guptill. I mean, it's just interesting, isn't it, how McCullum views this time that he's going to have the catches. Remember, he went and asked, where's the second catcher, please, to the umpire.
That's not a rule anymore.
I'm having the 2, and he says.
So next delivery from Boult in the over. Second delivery to Steve Smith. Smith is hit straight to that fielder in close, which is Guptill, and Guptill does a sort of a half-hearted throw down at the bowler's end, and a warm round of applause for a good piece of fielding, and even a little high five from his New Zealand teammates. So Steve Smith doing the movement around the crease that Jeremy Coney was talking about, adjusts his pads, sort of a way that Chris Harris used to do as well before every ball. There'll be the routine of adjustments. Boult running in, coming over the wicket to Steve Smith. And on a good length, defended back to Boult and fielded cleanly by Boult. Australia 17 for 1.
Well, he gets sort of far enough outside off stump, that inside edge. That drew an audible sigh from Coney. Sorry to interrupt your comments.
No, I love it.
But it actually missed the stumps by quite a long way because he was out there looking to drive it as well.
So Boult getting a little bit of movement as he tends to do. This next delivery to Smith is let go outside the off stump. And Smith was tempted. Sort of an overly animated leave in the end to suggest that he was never tempted, but I don't believe him. But 17 for 1, 2 deliveries left in this over. Boult up over 130 Ks.
But not much over. 132.
So 2 deliveries left. Trent Boult, can he get an early breakthrough just like Matt Henry did at the other end as Boult passes the umpire and let go very confidently from the Australian skipper, and through to Ronke it goes again. Felt sad for Ronke today. It's been well documented his struggle for runs, and you feel like he may not have too much time left in order to secure that place in the side into the future.
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one, isn't it? Because he can hit the ball so well, but to see him so much out of form.
Boult bowls, and he squares Smith up, and takes the outside edge of the bat. It runs down to third man, but Boult looking good in this over, and at least twice, caused the Australian skipper a little bit of trouble there. The over ends. We will take a break. Australia 18 for 1 after 3.
Radio Sport.
Welcome back to Eden Park as Matt Henry runs into bowl. Next over for New Zealand, and a good delivery again, just causing Smith a little bit of trouble outside the off stump as that one squirts away into the offside. A full delivery and takes the outside edge, but along the ground, and there's no run. Henry's looking good, isn't he?
That's the second time he's found the edge of the Smith bat. Looking to play it leg side, and it's gone straight to backward point.
Henry runs in. This delivery is full and turned into the onside and nicely fielded at square leg. Is that Corey Anderson? It is Corey Anderson, who was able to dive and pick up the ball, and there's no run. It's Smith, who's got all the shots, and one of his favourite shots is that on drive through sort of a wide long on in mid-wicket region along the ground.
Loves it there. Got to keep away from there, Henry. Lucky to get away with that one.
Yes, as the shadows start to creep across Eden Park. Next ball from Henry is outside off stump, and it's hit from Smith down to third man. Not entirely convincing, but safely along the ground, and just a single. As then the fielders swap around for the left-handed David Warner. So up over 140 again from Matt Henry. So much talk always about the pace of Milne, which gets around 150, but Henry's brisk too in the early 140s. And also with quite a short run-up, which I mentioned the other day, that for someone who bowls over 140, he's well inside the 30-metre circle. Bowling to the left-handed Warner, and this delivery is outside off stump. Punts from Warner, and a diving save. Could be a chance of a run-out, and the ball misses the stumps at the bowler's end. And it was probably the wrong end. Had the fielder managed to go to the keeper's end, that could well have been a run-out. A nice piece of work. Was that Williamson?
Yes, it is. That's that mid-off position I was talking about, and he dived away to his right and secured it in one hand. At that stage, the striker, who was Warner, was halfway down the pitch. That was the end. He really had to go to that, but he decided to go the bowler's end and missed quite badly.
As the next delivery from Henry is full and tucked into the onside from David Warner, but straight to Milne, who fires a very hard and fast baseball-style throw at Ronke. Almost too high, but there is no run.
New Zealand have been good around the park so far. Yes, there's been a couple of threes, but they've chased hard, and they have gone to the largest, the longest corners and sectors of the ground.
Henry runs in. He's bowling over the wicket to the left-handed Warner. It's short, and Warner thinks about pulling, and again it's wided by the umpires. You don't get away with much, do you, as a fast bowler?
No. Warner's not a tall man, is he?
I mean, I remember it being an incredibly rare thing. No, he's not tall. That was wide, in fairness. I've seen the replay. But an incredibly rare thing to see a ball be wided based on height, whereas it happens constantly now. As Henry, his next delivery to Warner is short again, and a swing and a miss from Warner. Nothing on it, and no wide signal from the umpires this time, so the over ends. A good end to the over from Matt Henry. And it'll be interesting to see, as we've talked about, how the pitch slowed down a bit, so whether we're going to see that as the ball ages a bit. Australia 20 for 1 after 4.
Much better bounce to the second one from Matt Henry, because it's just angling away from David Warner, the left-hander, so it's outside his off stump. He has to fetch that as well. It's up around the badge height and perhaps around a little bit higher than that. It's a very difficult kind of assignment to hook a ball like that with, conviction. It ends up going for 6, actually quite fine.
Yeah,
those ones.
As Boult starts the next over, running in, bowling over the wicket to Smith. Smith hits into the offside, thinks about a single, but there is no run. And Australia 20 for 1 after 4. So what do you reckon? If we heard a crowd number, I feel like we've got about 25,000.
Well, I think the North Stand has filled out, that bottom tier has filled out significantly, hasn't it? Perhaps people coming in after work.
That's where we had our lunch.
Yeah.
Or dinner, rather. I accidentally went to the police one and not the media one.
You thought you were a policeman?
Boult runs in, and this ball defended into the onside to mid-on. There's no run.
How did you end up there?
Well,
didn't you notice everyone else is wearing uniforms?
Yes, I did, but I saw Ken Rutherford. I thought, well,
he wasn't dressed as a policeman, was he?
I didn't think he was a police officer.
Okay.
And so I sat down and started eating and thought there did seem to be about 20 police officers for, 2 media. And then I started to realise that I was quite clearly in the wrong place.
You didn't get any sort of strange looks at all?
They were very welcoming. the boys and police.
How did you find eating with the cufflinks?
I enjoyed it thoroughly. As Boult decides to come around the wicket to the Australian captain, Steve Smith, drives this one to the offside, but can't quite time it. And there's no run. But it turns out where the police dine is right next to where the media dine. And realised that in the end. And was able to join you. Australia.
You did pop over, didn't you, at the end?
Yeah.
Didn't eat anything?
Well, I'd already eaten with my friends.
Same sort of food?
Actually, there was a slightly greater variety. The police didn't have the chicken curry as Boult comes in. Around the wicket to Smith. It's short ball, and it's pulled for 4. Excellent shot from Steve Smith, and calm as anything. Doesn't bother about running down to the other end of the pitch. He scuffs up his place where his mark is, goes through his little routines, and just dismisses that ball to the boundary for 4 runs. Smith moves to 13 off 14 deliveries. Warner is 4, not out off 6. So subdued start from David Warner so far.
Emphatic stroke from Smith, his best one so far, really.
And Boult continuing around the wicket to Steve Smith. Will this be a little bit fuller? And it is. It's hit into the offside, and New Zealand fielders are able to get across and keep that just to 1 run. That's Santner there, is it, who did that dive, and he was able just to get a little hand on it, which stopped it from going for more runs. So Australia 25 for 1, as we've got 1 delivery left in this Boult over, 5 runs from it. And while an early wicket for New Zealand, just a sense that we still don't quite have anything to gauge how this innings is going to go for Australia, as they chase what's a good score by New Zealand, but it's still the feeling that it could have been a whole lot more, if not for a very good Australian fight back. So Boult getting ready for the final delivery of this over as he runs in past the umpire. Bolts Warner, who charges, hits down the ground, over long on, and that's 4 runs. So the first shot of defiance from David Warner, as that one easily makes it to the boundary with a couple of bounces. 28 for 1 after 5.
Radio Sport.
Welcome back to Eden Park in Roxborogh with Jeremy Coney, as Matt Henry is going to start the next over for New Zealand, running in bowls, and it's short and it's pulled, it's miscued, but it's miscued just past Adam Milne, who's fielding at mid-on, and he dives as he chases the ball out to the boundary, and it has gone for 4. A miscued pull shot from Steve Smith, but he had enough on it, and it's gone to the boundary. But that wasn't too far off from going to mid-on, Jeremy.
No. Milne keeping himself pretty well up in that 30-metre circle to prevent singles. Landed about, I think, on that 30-metre circle. So, yeah, not too far from him, but safe enough.
Hit high on the bat from Steve Smith. Matt Henry's next delivery as he runs in. It's full. He's bowled him. Played on. The Australian captain is out as he walks back to the dressing room. An inside edge onto the stumps, and Matt Henry has picked up the second wicket, his second. Australia 33 for 2. 2 balls into the 6th over. And that's a massive breakthrough for New Zealand, as one of the best batsmen in the world departs.
Induced a drive from Steve Smith. Full enough, in other words, but just a little bit out from the off stump, wide of the off stump. And he's driving hard at it. And perhaps, this is where the adjustment coming from Australia to New Zealand, where our wickets are generally slower than the Australians. And the further you get your hands away from your body, the more the gap opens up between your pad and the inside edge. And it's come from that inside edge of the stump. So I think it's one of these pitches that the more you play with an angled bat also, you bring the stumps into play, coming from a bottom edge, or you're fetching the ball a little bit as it starts to keep a little bit lower as the ball ages. Those kind of dismissals come into play a bit more.
When we saw that replay, precisely as you say, Jeremy, that Steve Smith, who's got such a great eye that he probably doesn't mind having that bat outside the pad and outside the body so much. But when you see it edge and then it's such an angle back onto the stumps, that you think that maybe technically wasn't quite right for the situation?
Well, once the bat gets away in front of you, cricket's a game where you hit the ball basically under your head. And that's why everyone says Williamson impresses everybody, because he plays it so late. But that's generally under his head. Now, the Australians tend not to do that because of their pitches not moving at all. The hands go out at the length and the line of the ball.
First ball to the new batsman, George Bailey, and he defends. A good length delivery from Matt Henry. This is good bowling from Henry. And George Bailey, who may not be a household name to New Zealanders, and that's probably in part because Australia haven't toured here a great deal in recent years, but Bailey averages 43 in one-day cricket. So it's an outstanding record. He's played 69 matches, 18 50s and 300s. And so he's got a record which is comparable to Martin Guptill and to Ross Taylor as far as averages goes. Next delivery, it's a full toss from Henry, and that's a slip. It's not going to be a beamer, and as that's squirted out into the onside from Bailey, it's going to be an easy 2 runs for him, so he gets off the mark.
Well, the first thing you notice about George Bailey is his stance. The way he stands before the ball is bowled, so the preparation for the stroke, it's very closed off. You'll see the front leg is right across to the offside, so that he's almost facing sort of mid-off, if you like.
There's the next ball from Henry, short and defending to the offside. It's very unusual to see a batsman with that. Normally it's either open or it's directly side on.
Well, it means, of course, is that it makes you stronger in certain areas, but it makes you weaker in others. And the weakness, perhaps, is that it's very difficult to access a ball that's on sort of leg stump and middle and leg area, because your pad's in the way. You've got to make a very quick change to accommodate that. You see where his foot is there?
As Henry bowls full, the Yorker length delivery, and nicely analysed from Jeremy Coney. The technique of George Bailey, an unusual one, but clearly one which has reaped some serious rewards for him too. As that over ends, 6 overs done. Australia 35 for 2, and they are chasing New Zealand's 307 for 8. I'm going to hand over to Brian Waddle. A pleasure, Jeremy.